I tell them, either you're going to continue in this life. If you don't make the change, think about what can happen to you. You're going to end up dead. You're going to end up in prison. You're going to end up losing your family, your mind, and your life. And that's black and white.
From prisoner to pastor, meet this former career criminal who used his chance at freedom to turn his life around. Next on Long Story Short.
One-on-one engaging conversations with some of Hawaii's most intriguing people. Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Leslie Wilcox. The path to becoming a pastor was a steep climb for Roy Yamamoto, a troubled childhood, the shame of not being able to read, and as a young adult, the siren call of drugs. His addiction led to violent crimes and arrest after arrest, court case after court case, and then the prospect of 80 years in prison. With nowhere else to turn, he embraced a faith which took him on a new journey of hope and redemption. So tell me where you were born, what your parents were like, what life was like for you.
Okay, I was born here on the islands, and I was raised in Pro City, grew up in Pro City, and grew up, we had loving parents, but my education wasn't so good. So from a young age, I was put in a special ed, and I was so ashamed being in a special ed and playing.
Why special ed?
I missed a lot of school, and what happened was, I guess I probably had a learning disability, and I couldn't keep up with the students, and so I was put in a special ed. But it's hard, growing up, you playing sports and being with all the people, and I was so ashamed, so I remember even in high school, I would have to lie to all my friends, tell them that, oh, I've taken this class, I'm in this class, and what happened, the bell would ring and everybody would go in class, then I'll walk into my class, and before the bell rang, I would run out of my class, go to the other side of the school, and just a shame. I never really learned how to read and write, and for my whole life, so it was hard. The only thing kept me in school was sports. I was good in sports, and that was the only thing. And
how about home life?
Home life, we had my mom was really, she was abusive and strict, and Japanese style. She never showed much love, but I knew she loved me. And my dad was very loving, but very abusive too. And he was a big man, and so that was hard. So it was, that it kind of was really hard upbringing in ways, but in a lot of ways, my dad really spoiled and loved me, and spent a lot of time with me.
Sometimes you lived with your grandmother.
Yeah, so I was really close with my grandparents. They really loved me a lot, and so I would pretty much live with them, even when I graduated from high school, I lived with them, But, my grandparents, my grandfather, were really close, and he would take me fishing every day, and I just loved being around him.
But you loved sports, and you're a physical guy, right? You did all kinds of things, not just football.
Yeah. Surfed from when I was young, and played football, wrestled, and went to the World Nationals for wrestling, and then went off and played college football at Sacramento for a year. And that's when I got into the drugs. I got introduced to cocaine up there, and what happened was, every year I played football, I played first string, but because of the drugs, I ended up playing second string that year. And
lineman?
So, lineman. And so when I got back, I was supposed to train and get ready for the next season, but I started hanging around with the wrong people again. And what happened was, when it was my time to go back and play football, all of a sudden my career in drugs was more important, so continued. And what happened was, my girlfriend at that time got pregnant, so I had to stay back and work, and I had no education. So I became a iron worker like my dad, and that was hard work, and was really hard work. And I remember at that time people were starting to do the drug ice, crystal methamphetamine, and I remember looking at them at work, and I said, man, I would never do this drug, because all of them were losing like 20, 30 pounds. They're losing their jobs, their families, and I said no. But because I was addicted to the cocaine, what happened, I was out one day and one guy passed me the pipe and said, hey, try this, and I did. And
you didn't stop and think about all those guys who were losing their jobs and families?
The part about addiction and drugs, right? And so I took a hit, and from that time, man, my life, went crashing down.
Roy Yamamoto says his drug use escalated to a $1,000 a day habit, but he didn't have that kind of money, so he had to find a way to pay for it any way he could.
I was doing cocaine and ice, but mostly ice. And what happened was, the drug was, so addicting that it took over my life, and eventually, my wife divorced me and took my daughter, and I was going through so much more pain. So what I did was I did more and more drugs, and that's when my habit became that big. And because of the drugs came crime, and because of crime I went in prison 5 times in my life, convicted for first-degree extortion, kidnapping, robbery, heavy body injuries, assault, and attempted murder.
Okay, so you were the muscle?
Yeah, at that time.
So you were beating people up?
I was collecting money. I got caught in Ohio for first-degree extortion, kidnapping, and robbery.
How did you get to Ohio to do that?
So I got hired from somebody to go and collect money for them. They were working here, and they wanted me to come up there because they had clients up there, so I did, and I got caught up there.
May I ask, what did you do? What did you do to extort the money?
Oh, no, I'm not proud of it, but, we had to go and threaten people and, beat them up and, force them to give possessions and money, and, that's what happened. And, one day we went to hire a guy overnight and collect the money. He gave half of it, was going to give the rest, but he set it up where instead of him come in with the money, the county task force came in and raided us and put us in prison, and we're there, and it was in the news. We were gonna, it was a big case, so I thought my life was over then, but somehow, some way, God made a miracle, and after a year they gave me a deal. They gave me a 15-year. I had to plead guilty to 15 years in prison, and they'll send me back to do probation. And they told me if I even, get in any trouble, that they'll extradite me back automatically without parole. And what happened was I got back. I was doing good, but went back and started to smoke weed again. And next thing you know, I was back into the drugs again. And I picked up the other big charges here. I got caught for second-degree robbery and accomplice to robbery. And they indicted me, brought me in, and I remember being there, and my lawyer come in and saying that, Mr. Yamamoto, the state is looking to put you away 40 years to life as a career criminal because of my record and my past. And so I said, what is a career criminal? He said, well, they're giving you 40. They're going to stack another 40 on top of it.
80 years.
80 years in prison. And it really hit me so hard, thinking all my chances of never getting out of prison again. Anybody can go in there. It's not a place where you want to be. Just thinking about going back to my cell, crying, just, man, you're in this 4x8 cell, and you're gonna living here for the rest of your life, you know, you're never gonna see daylight again, and your family. And man, I was just crying and going through so much depression and thinking of any way that I could take my life, because I didn't want to stay in a cell for the rest of my life, you know. So I was just thinking what I could do, and it was then that this roommate of mine's, he was a Christian, he invited me to go to this Bible study, and I was like, you know what, okay. I had nothing else, you know, to turn to, so I said, okay. He gave me this big Bible, and we're walking to this Bible study, and I remember, man, all my friends are looking at me and laughing. Hey, where are you going with that Bible, Roy? I said, you know what, you guys cannot help me out of this one. My family, my lawyer, my friends, nobody can help me out of this one. So I don't know, just go see what the Lord can do for me. And then we went to that Bible study. And
you truly had hope?
You know, when I got there, everyone that was sitting at this Bible study had this different look in their eyes and this different spirit on them. And as the leader started sharing with me, then I was like, man, it started to just comfort me so much. And at the end, he asked if I wanted to accept the Lord. And I said the sinner's prayer, accepted the Lord. And man, it was just tears and crying. And from that point, I knew I was a new person.
Despite the skepticism of fellow inmates, Roy Yamamoto was revitalized. He took that hope with him to court when it was time to face his sentencing. And you were still getting teased by and mocked by your fellow prisoners?
Yeah. So I went, and, you know, I remember they saying, oh, your faith gonna be with you? I said, yes. But I went in court, and, you know, I prayed, and somehow, you know, the judge came out and said, you know what, your victim didn't show up, so we're gonna drop your charge, you know. And I was, wow.
And what was the case exactly? What happened to that victim?
So we went to collect money from this couple guys, and what happened was we went in. They were working in this, you know, hospital in a parking lot, and I guess we got, you know, we took some of the items, and you know, one of my friends beat up the guy, and so we got caught for that. And we went in. My co-defendant, you know, he got sentenced too. But yeah, when we went into court, somehow they dropped the case, went back, and I, you know, told everybody, oh, God, you know, bless me, and went to see the parole board. They appealed my case again the second time, and so I wasn't getting out, and I was like, oh, but I just, you know, used that time to just really said to the parole board, you know, when God ready, he'll open the door, and if he needs me to stay in here to learn about him more, then, you know, I'm going to give him the key. I'll let him, you know, determine when I get out. And went to court again. The same judge dropped my charge again. And this time they released me. And so I got out, and they appealed my case, and I knew it was, you know, I wasn't supposed to get out, so I made sure I told my sister, oh, make sure you pick me up, you're not late, you know. They might take me back in.
So twice the victim, the witness didn't show up, right?
Yeah, they had the witness, and then at the day he didn't show up, so they dropped it, you know, without prejudice, where they can bring it up later with more evidence. So I got out, and, you know, I just said, you know what, I gotta promise God I'm gonna find the first church I can find, and I'm gonna go and just, you know, give my whole life to the Lord. And I went to a church, and how God answered my prayers. The second week, I was sitting in the back, and this guy went up and shared his testimony at church, and I looked, that was the judge who just cut me free from doing a life in prison.
Because the witness didn't show.
Yeah.
What's the judge's name?
Judge Ahu.
He left
the
judiciary to be a pastor.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was just amazing, because he dropped my charge, and we became friends because we were coming to the same church, and, you know, started to tell him about, you know, my past, and yeah, we became close. But they appealed my case third time, and I lost the appeal, and this time.
So the prosecutors were really out to get you in prison.
They wanted to put me away, and, you know, I deserved it. And so they appealed it the third time, and I had to go trial, and went and see my lawyer. Said, he said the best thing I could do was plead guilty to 20 years in prison, because if I take the deal, because if I fight it and lose, it's going to give me the life automatically. And I went back to trial. Ellen couldn't be my judge because we were friends, and so I prayed for another Christian judge and went to court, and a lot of people came to support me, and God just showed up and went in court. And I remember Mike Town was my second judge. He came out and said, Mr. Yamamoto, you have a lot of support, but people like you say they change, but 2-3 years down the line, they fall back and get in bigger trouble. So I said, but he looked at me and said, but I heard what you've been doing, and for the men and for the people and your friends, and I believe that God changed your life. So, he said, your co-defendant just got sentenced to 20 years in prison. He went and did a crime with you in the same spot you're standing today. But, he said, but I know God changed your life, so instead I'm going to give you 5 years probation instead, and I'll cut you free, so, they closed the case and cut me free.
By all accounts, Roy Yamamoto was a changed man. His new purpose in life was to help those still in prison, and perhaps more importantly, their children, so that they didn't go down the same path. You continue to do prison ministry, right?
Yeah, doing prison ministry, and then went to the sister church, Diamond Head, and shared one day, and this man was walking up the street, and he called me, so I shook his hand, turned around, and looked, Judge Michael Town. And I said, where are you going? I'm going to the service. I said, I just talked about you in the first service, So he came in, he got touched, and then, we started this camp for the children of incarcerated, Camp Agape. And so he's been helping, this last 15 years with this camp that we do for the children. Usually at our camps every year, they come, we usually have about over 200 kids here, but they come and we share testimony together, our stories together, and just to encourage the kids, when they come so rascal, and I remember our first camp, the kids came and they were like, man, they were fighting with us, and they were like, they never knew about the camp, but we just do the camp the best we can to break down the walls and let the kids have the best time in their life, and just put in a little bit Jesus here, more on the next day, and at the end you see them all just crying and giving their life to the Lord. And Sunday is about forgiveness, and that's the hard part for the kids. They've been struggling with forgiveness, and they've been hurt so much, but they learn to forgive and learn that the forgiveness is not just for the one that hurt them, but it's for them, and they just get released from this. And they come, and you see many of them become leaders in the camp, in the church, and they come back the following year to be a junior mentor. It's been a blessing they're at the highest risk, right? Become criminals of adults and get into addiction and going into the youth facilities. So, we got to, so we do a continuum mentorship throughout the year for them, so we can try to reach as much as we can.
And I know so many prisoners say that they're doing time, but their families are out there doing time at the same time.
In prison, we go in there and we do the time, but it's our families that do the hard time. Yeah, they don't have finances, and they gotta relocate into somewhere smaller, and a lot of them gotta go to foster parents, and so it's a hard time for them. And that's why we started to do big outreaches in Arizona prison, and because their families hurt so much because they cannot visit.
And those are all
Hawaiʻi inmates.
Hawaiʻi prisoners.
About 1,700 of them there. So the families cannot afford to do visitations, and communication is hard because they have to do collect calls, and so they cannot afford the bills. So they cut the communication, and we just started the camp, but God wanted us to do outreach there to reach them. So we went up there and did a really big outreach up there, and we got to reach, the whole prison was just amazing. And we went up, and before we went, we made a deal with the warden that will provide a Christmas gift for all the guys, with all the local treats. And being in prison, I know you can't bring nothing into the inmates, but through the warden and giving it to the staff, and they giving it to the inmates. So we got back and just made the biggest Christmas bag that we could for every single inmate.
Okay, so what were the local treats you put in there?
So
That's
being in
important.
prison, what you wish you could have. So we gave like kaki mochi and cuttlefish and macadamia nuts and macadamia nut cookies and maui potato, all the local, every local treat you could think of, furikake, so they can make some musubis in there, and just like almost a $80 basket, gift for them, and we got to bring in and give to every single inmate, and they let them know that they're not forgotten, they're very much loved, and they let them know that their families miss them. So yeah, we've been doing like a really big outreaches up there. We bring like the brothers to do a little loosen it, because it's hard. They're in prison, they're gangs, right? So they cannot show weaknesses, and so when you're going there, you can just pull up there and think you're going to reach the guys. So we,
for example, altar calls.
Yeah,
you don't do those.
We do, but you got to get to their heart too, and bring them. So we bring the brothers. So bring a little laughter and joy.
Brothers, the two comedians.
Yeah, and they miss that, right? And bring like Henry Kapono or a Hawaiian group up there, to play and bring an aloha spirit back. So they kind of bring them back to their roots. And then we bring this group, Katina's really awesome Samoan group. And then we have all the ex-inmates share. We got 6 ex-inmates from the prison now that are pastors at our church. And we bring all the ex-inmates, and we bring some of the Camp Agape kids, and we showed a video of the camp for the kids. And so by the end, when we do the altar call, you see all the guys giving they walk in so hard, but they leave just a miracle happens, and they leave crying and all accepting the Lord.
Serving God was one part of Roy Yamamoto's transformation. He also needed to restore relationships with those he hurt, as well as those who hurt him, including some family members. They were abusive.
Yeah, they're abusive, but also always loving, but God allowed me to forgive, and my dad got saved too. He comes to the church, and I got to baptize my dad, and my mom passed away, and so God really rebuilt that relationship. We go to Alaska, we go fishing every summer, and we always had a good relationship, and but he was abusive, and that kind of hurt me a lot. But that's how it was right back then. Was they were heavy-handed.
What about your ex-wife?
And my ex-wife, I got out, and I wanted to see my daughter so much. I was a changed person, but they were so afraid because the person I was, and all the hurt I did to them. And I called her and asked if I could talk to her, and she said no, and I said, I just wanted to come and make amends. I'm so sorry about my past, and I want to tell my daughter, how sorry I am. And she said, let me talk to my parents. And then she said if I could come over and talk to them, so I did, and I got to sit down and say that, I'm so sorry. Everything that happened was my fault. It was my fault that I took that first set of drugs, and I didn't mean it, but it took over my life, and I brought so much hurt to you and my daughter, and I'm so sorry, and I got to make amends with the family, and they were so nice to me, and just say, so sorry for the person I became, and if I could turn everything back, I I pray I could, but I can't. But one thing I can do the best I can from this day forward. And we made amends, and I remember calling, asking to see my daughter. She said, no. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Didn't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but when you're ready, I'm going to be here. I'm going to try to do everything I can. And then she called and said, if you want your daughter on the weekends, you can. And perfect timing, where I could spend that time and teach my daughter how to surf and now, she got married and she's a radiologist now, and, just God restored it. And, we're friends with my ex-wife. God just restored everything, so it's a blessing.
And you found a new love
in
the ministry.
Yeah, my new wife, we're serving in ministry. She helped volunteer for the Angel Tree ministry that we do for the children at Christmas time. We get gifts for all the families, of the incarcerated, and she was serving, and then met her, and eventually we got married, and we serve in ministry together today. So yeah, we have my stepson is like such an awesome kid.
Wouldn't be something you would have predicted, would it?
No, but God can restore and rebuild and bless, like I said, anybody, and truly blessed. Grateful for every single day, that I get to be out and get to serve Him. So yeah, it's a blessing.
His wife is Charlotte Yamamoto, and the church is one he established after some 15 years with New Hope Oahu. His church is Agape Christian Fellowship Oahu. Mahalo to Senior Pastor Roy Yamamoto for sharing your story of recovery and new life. And thank you for joining us. For PBS Hawaii and Long Story Short, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha nui. And you never had anyone teaching you literacy, right?
So when I was in prison after I accepted the Lord, God blessed me with this wonderful guy, this guy Roy Yamamoto. He spent most of his life in prison, and I couldn't read, so he would get the easiest reading Bible for me, and he would help me pronounce words, and he kind of taught me how to read, and
Oh, what happened to Roy Kishimoto?
He's actually working at a church right now.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.